More bad news for Red Bull as the new FIA rules target their car. Fernando Alonso's retirement has been hinted at, and Yuki gets support to join Red Bull. Do consider subscribing to the channel. Now let's get straight into the latest F1 news. As Ferrari's talks with Adrian Newey broke down, Mark Priestley believes it wasn't so much money that reportedly swayed Adrian Newey to Aston Martin, but the freedom to bring in his own team of engineers. According to reports, design legend Newey is on his way to Aston Martin with confirmation expected in the coming weeks. Leaving Red Bull in the first quarter of next year, the 65-year-old will swap Milton Keynes for Silverstone in a 4-year deal that's worth a cool $100 million. If the rumors are true, it is the latest salvo from Aston Martin team owner Lawrence Stroll as the Canadian looks to turn Aston Martin into a championship-winning Formula One team. Lots of talk now that Adrian Newey either has or is about to sign a contract at the Aston Martin team worth an astronomical amount of money. $100 million is the number being bandied around. Priestley, the former McLaren mechanic turned F1 pundit, said on his YouTube channel. They are one of the few teams that can afford that amount of money. One of the few teams that is willing to pay that amount of money, and they are a team that is desperate for success. Seemingly, Lawrence Stroll is willing to do pretty much anything to make that happen. But whether it is a sustainable plan for long-term success, I don't know. They seem to be throwing money in all sorts of areas trying to make this happen, but so far they haven't been able to generate enough of it on a stable basis. Can Adrian Newey be the man to turn that around? But as Aston Martin celebrate the signing of F1's most successful designer with 25 championships won in his cars, Ferrari have once again missed their man. The Scuderia were the early favorites to sign the design legend, but according to Autosprint, over and above his huge salary, he also wanted the right to veto the hiring of new engineers. Ferrari team boss Fred Vasseur said no. Priestley, however, reckons Aston Martin may have given Newey just that. The freedom, some kind of opportunity that is bigger than just the money. Whether it's bringing in his own team of engineers, that's another rumor that potentially Ferrari was not happy with. If you sign Adrian Newey, you might also need to sign up to 20 other engineers that Adrian wants in his team to make the whole thing work. Maybe that doesn't work for other teams. Maybe that feels like a destabilizing element. Those are questions that everyone has had to ask. But it is looking more and more likely that Aston Martin could be his destination. From Stake Kick Sauber to Oracle Red Bull Racing, Zak Brown has warned McLaren's rivals that relying on title sponsors may be lucrative, but it is also dangerous. McLaren last had a title sponsor back in 2013 when the team was backed by Vodafone, only for the mobile operator to call time on the sponsorship deal. The partnership, which began in 2007 and ran for 7 years, was reportedly worth up to $50 million a year to McLaren. The Woking team opted not to replace them, and to this day have been without a title sponsor. It's a business plan Brown intends to continue. Although they have a host of sponsors from British American Tobacco, A Better Tomorrow, to Monster Energy to Richard Mille with their extensive list almost up to 50, what they don't have is one huge title sponsor. From day one, I wanted us not to be dependent on a sponsor. If you look at our partners, we aren't either, McLaren CEO Brown said as per Motorsport magazine. If you have a title sponsor like some teams, then that's dangerous, because if that sponsor leaves you, you have a big gap to fill. I like the approach we have taken, he added. It would have to be the right brand and the right partnership, then we would be open to something like that. As for McLaren's growing list of sponsors, Brown says McLaren don't take that for granted with their hard work on the track paying off in the books. We have to stay grounded because we know where we came from. We earned it the hard way, and I think that was a good thing, the American said. So we know what it feels like. It makes us work even harder to make sure it doesn't happen again, and we don't take anything for granted. McLaren, Williams, and Haas are the 3 teams on this year's grid who do not have title sponsors after Ferrari signed with HP in April. Alpine is planning a quite big upgrade, which will form the basis of its 2025 car for the final stages of the Formula One season. The French manufacturer has had a challenging 2024 season, with its A524 Challenger starting the year in Bahrain as the slowest on the grid. Since then, the team has undergone major infrastructure changes, which has included the departure of technical director Matt Harmon to Williams and the imminent exit of team principal Bruno Famin. However, there have been recruitments too, including Flavio Briatore as F1 team advisor and David Sanchez as executive technical director, while Oliver Oakes will become team boss after the summer break. Those changes come in parallel to the team making some solid progress on track. And, from those early days struggling at the back, it has become a more regular point scorer. The Enstone-based squad is currently 8th in the Constructors' Championship. Now, following a hefty upgrade that arrived at the Belgian Grand Prix, the team has revealed plans for a big change coming for the end-of-season flyaways. Reflecting on the latest upgrades, Sanchez said, "This is a first step in the pipeline. We have another one, which should be quite big, and that should be the basis for next year. We will do more on this year's car, definitely." Sanchez said that after he had joined, the team had deliberately worked on a parallel program to introduce 2 stages of upgrades. "We've been working on this one since day one," he said. "The other one is an extension, using a bit more time to go further." Asked when the upgrade was coming, Sanchez said, "A few races after the break." While the early stage of the season saw Alpine struggling with an overweight car and big traction issues, Sanchez said now the team was mostly out of a problem-solving phase and was instead chasing pure performance gains. "The number one problem is for everyone finding more downforce and trying to design out some anomalies which we may see with the current car," he said. This latest update package is intended primarily for more downforce, but also a little bit more top speed. Having only arrived at Alpine in May, Sanchez has not had much time to make sweeping changes to the organization. However, he thinks that the ball is now rolling on developments that should leave it in good stead for the looming rule change from 2026. "From an infrastructure point of view, the team was already well advanced with its plans," he said. "But we looked together about whether we needed to prioritize a few items more than others. I think where we are now, the plan we have, if I look at 26 and beyond, we should be in a good position. Now it's more to get everything in the right direction with this car, the next one, and build more confidence in the team." The difference in performance between the Red Bull RB20 and last year's RB19 shows that this year's car has not been as dominant, with competitors catching up. It is 132 points behind compared to this time last year, indicating the average level of competitiveness over the 14 races held so far. The car has become more dependent on specific tracks, especially from the Miami Grand Prix onwards. It is surprising to see that the RB20's performance is increasingly affected by track conditions, given Max Verstappen's early successes. He won 4 out of the first 5 races on different types of tracks and in varying conditions, with the exception being the Australian GP, where he retired due to a rare brake failure that caused a fire. This issue could now be seen as a hint to Red Bull's current challenges. In July, the FIA made changes to Article 11.2.1 of the technical regulations after a unanimous vote by the teams. The revised article now prohibits any system or mechanism that intentionally produces uneven braking torques on a specific axis within each braking circuit, hinting that a loophole in the rules may have been exploited. It is intriguing that the article was rewritten instead of issuing a technical directive to address the issue. This suggests that the modification was made out of concern that a team may have already taken advantage of the loophole in the rules. The altered article implies that a team may have designed a system to intentionally produce uneven braking torques, which goes against the spirit of the rules. The link to Red Bull becomes clearer when looking at the braking system used in the RB20 up to the Chinese GP. It was reported that the car was equipped with an inertial valve that allowed precise distribution of hydraulic pressure to the rear axle based on the car's turning direction. This valve was not part of the components provided by Brembo, the manufacturer of the braking system, and was primarily focused on improving the car's handling and eliminating understeer during cornering. The loss of cornering precision and understeer from Miami onwards, which even subsequent upgrades failed to address, suggests a connection to the RB20's declining performance. Although there is no concrete evidence of Red Bull employing such a system, it would have been legal at the start of the season based on the regulations at that time. In summary, the reduced competitiveness of the RB20 seems to be attributed to the progressive deterioration of the car's vehicle dynamics, rather than aerodynamic issues or extreme setups. It's unclear what corrective measures can be taken, but according to sources, adjustments in the car's setup and the interaction between the front and rear ends may be necessary after the summer break. Replicating the function of a system, if it existed, would be a challenging task for the engineers directed by Pierre Wache. Flavio Briatore currently expects Fernando Alonso to retire from Formula One at the end of the F1 2026 season, with the Aston Martin driver set to decide if he wants to carry on beyond that year. Alonso stands as the most experienced driver in F1 history, having made a total of 391 Grand Prix starts since his debut with Minardi in 2001. The two-time world champion, who returned to F1 after a 2-year sabbatical in 2021, celebrated his 43rd birthday last month. Aston Martin announced in April that Alonso had agreed a new multi-year contract, committing him to the team until at least the end of the F1 2026 season, the first year of the sport's new regulations, marking the start of Aston Martin's works partnership with Honda. Briatore, who oversaw Alonso's consecutive title triumphs as Renault team principal across 2005 and 06, is a close confidant of the Alonso, having acted as the Spaniard's manager for more than 2 decades. Appearing on the Formula for Success podcast, Briatore, who returned to Renault, now Alpine, as an executive advisor in June, revealed that Alonso is likely to retire at the end of 2026 as things stand. And with the wording of Aston Martin's statement hinting at options to continue beyond 2026, Briatore said that Alonso will have a big decision to make at the end of that season over whether to continue for one more year. He said, "I don't know about his future. I believe at Spa, for example, he was very smart. He did one pit stop and this was the way to go because of his experience. If you ask me if Fernando wants to continue after we finish in the contract, our last year will be 2026 for the moment. What he wants to do after, I don't know. Does he want to continue for one more year? The performance is there. You see the performance of Fernando, it's there. It's not a question of him losing concentration. During the race, he's always there. If he's 11th, he wants to be 10th. If he's 10th, he wants to be 9th. He wants the car to be competitive. He's qualifying well. He's racing well. I don't know, honestly, if he wants to stop with 2026 as his last year or if he wants to go ahead. Honestly, I don't know. It depends on the feeling he has about racing and the timing. I don't know if he'll have a family at the time and whatever. But for sure, he is somebody unique. I've never seen somebody like that. So determined every day, every day, every day. Never give up. Unbelievable." Briatore highlighted Alonso's discipline as a key factor behind the driver's longevity, with the Oviedo-born star more fit now than at his title-winning heights and avoiding cheat meals with his diet. He added, "I've been managing Fernando Alonso for 22 years now. We've had 22 years of marriage. Fernando is still very difficult to understand because Fernando is still motivated like a young driver. He's super fit, maybe more fit now than when he was driving for me. He's living in Monaco. I know he's doing a bicycle ride every day. He's doing 60, 70, 80 kilometers every day. He goes to the gym every day. Every time we go to dinner, he's very, very careful. He's never cheating with the food. He's unbelievable." Making a misstep with their Spanish GP upgrades, which was magnified by McLaren and Mercedes improvements, Damon Hill says Ferrari are in a bit of a vortex. After 2 years of Red Bull's dominance, this season's championship has seen 3 teams aside from Red Bull win Grand Prix: Ferrari, McLaren, and more recently Mercedes. The Scuderia were Red Bull's nearest challengers in the early rounds when Carlos Sainz won in Australia, before Charles Leclerc broke his home jinx to win the Monaco Grand Prix. That had Ferrari dreaming of a potential title challenge, as the Scuderia sat just 24 points behind Red Bull in the Constructors' Championship, with Leclerc P2 in the drivers' standings. However, 6 races later, the dream is in tatters as a misstep at the Spanish Grand Prix introduced bouncing in the high-speed corners, forcing Ferrari to roll back on their upgrades to fix the issue, something they have yet to get a handle on. That it came around the time McLaren nailed their Miami Grand Prix upgrades before Mercedes introduced their much-lauded new front wing in Monaco only magnified Ferrari's error. It meant the Italian stable dropped to 3rd in the Constructors' Championship behind McLaren, while Mercedes' current rate of scoring could also see them overhaul Ferrari. The Brackley squad has secured 3 wins in the last 4 races, with McLaren also multiple race winners. Hill told the F1 Nation podcast, "They are obviously earning those positions. They're earning the right to challenge for victories." McLaren, notably, and also the recovery of Mercedes has been pretty dramatic since James Allison announced, "How could we have been so stupid?" And now they've got their little tweak, whatever it is that they've done, to make the car work. Ferrari are the only people who kind of got a little bit of a vortex and going around in circles without really getting further ahead. His fellow podcast pundit Tom Clarkson reckons Ferrari's season is a bit like their 2022 campaign, when they won 2 of the first 3 races only to fall by the wayside, with their title ambitions over by the summer break. Ferrari's season, he said, It kind of feels a bit like 2022 with Ferrari, where they started very strong, and then from the Spanish Grand Prix onwards, it started to unravel. I'm getting similar vibes from Ferrari now. Although it was good to see them, I felt the last couple of races before this break in Hungary and Spa, they seemed to get their mojo back, seemed to get some consistency out of the SF24. Red Bull's rivals may have more wins on the board than they did last season when the stats were 21-1, but the list is still stacked in Max Verstappen's favor, as the Dutchman has claimed 7 of 14 wins to sit 78 points ahead of Lando Norris the driver's standings. Pierre Gasly wants to see former teammate Yuki Tsunoda get his chance at Red Bull, revealing that Tsunoda has opened up to him about his frustrations. Tsunoda is now in his 4th season with the Red Bull Junior F1 team and is delivering his most impressive and consistent form yet, having collected 22 points so far in F1 2024 compared to 12 for his experienced V-Carb teammate Daniel Ricciardo. However, despite a potential opening emerging ahead of the summer break with Sergio Perez struggling at Red Bull alongside Max Verstappen, Tsunoda at no stage became a serious contender for a promotion. With Ricciardo and Red Bull reserve Liam Lawson instead the Perez alternatives, the team ultimately choosing to keep Perez in his seat for now. Tsunoda has expressed his belief that he feels ready to make the step up and take on the Verstappen challenge. But with Red Bull seemingly not thinking the same, Gasly, who was Tsunoda's teammate in the Red Bull second team from 2021 to 22, said Tsunoda has discussed the situation with him, saying he feels he deserves more. And Gasly would like to see Tsunoda get his chance, though of course he is not the decision-maker. For that, he pointed to the boss of the Red Bull driver program, Helmut Marko. "I always said Yuki is very fast," said Gasly as per Autosport. "I have seen it. He has proved it over the past few seasons and he will continue to prove it. I have talked to him about it. We have had conversations, and I know he wants more and feels he deserves more. It's not an easy position. Personally, I would have liked him to get a chance at Red Bull, but I am not Helmut Marko." In Gasly, Tsunoda is speaking to someone who knows all about the roller coaster ride that can sometimes come with being a Red Bull driver, having been promoted to the main team for 2019, but demoted back at the summer break after struggling against Verstappen. Gasly would not achieve a return to Red Bull despite impressing back at the junior team and opted to join Alpine from 2023. But Gasly has told Tsunoda that if he stays on this trajectory, then he will ultimately be rewarded. "I have been in a similar position to him," said Gasly. "What I say to him is, just keep doing what you are doing. As long as you are competitive, at some point you will get the right place." Tsunoda recently revealed that both Marko and Red Bull team principal Christian Horner had told him that he must calm down, the Japanese driver having previously created something of a reputation for team radio outbursts. However, Tsunoda has made progress in controlling his emotions and said observing what Ricciardo does has been a big help in that regard. "Last year, in the second half of the season, I was told by Helmut Marko and Christian Horner that I needed to calm down and focus more on the feedback to become a more complete driver," he told Racing News 365. Daniel is very, very good at that kind of thing, especially in terms of feedback and overall communication. After I got an insight into his communication style over the onboard radio, keeping in mind the goals set by Marko and Horner, things came together. Of course, things happened in Bahrain, the cool-down lap dive bomb on Ricciardo, but afterwards I changed to become a better driver, something I have been able to do ever since. I am therefore very satisfied with how I am doing in that area at the moment. Tsunoda has been retained as a V-Carb driver for F1 2025, as he waits to find out who will fill the second seat. Thanks for watching. I'll see you around.